Welcome to Pineapples and Thorns, episode 72, and I am Kat, and with me today is Fado. Hey, Fado.
Good evening.
And a very special welcome to our guest, JUDO SLOTH. He is a content creator for Clash of Clans. Welcome, JUDO.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to talk everything Clash, especially after such a big update.
Excellent. Well, let's leap right into it. You want to give us a brief history for Clash of Clans for yourself?
Sure thing. I started playing the game, I think, close to 10 years ago now. It was April of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about the game about 1 month after launch, actually. One of my friends tried to get me to start playing it, but I reluctantly kept on putting off because I knew I would get addicted. And here we are, nigh on 10 years later, when I finally started playing, got addicted to the game and never stopped. And it's just fantastic. It continues to get bigger and better. So that's how I kind of started playing, just all of my friends, enjoying the game and having to jump on board, basically.
Excellent. And how many accounts and different town hall levels do you currently play?
Oh, gosh. Well, it depends how you define play, because I don't play many of the accounts, but I have, I think, 35-ish accounts.
Oh, my gosh.
But most of them are for content. I don't really play the game too much, to be honest, because all of my focus is on content. So typically I have my main and my second account, and then normally around about 3 or 4 other accounts I'll be kind of casually farming and creating content around. And then I kind of flip between different accounts. I'm gradually leveling up lots of different town hall levels, but I just can't focus on them all at the same time. So I kind of rotate between different bases, to be honest.
And tell us where the name JUDO SLOTH originated. It is pretty unique.
I guess so, yeah. I think I've only told this story once on my channel, or probably on live streams as well, but I've done judo all of my life. I'm a second-degree black belt, so that's clearly where the name judo comes from. And I used to live in the States. I moved out there to compete, and I was there for about 18 months. And I was at a competition where my coach asked me to go and get something out of the car, which is like a 2-minute job. And a lot of the other people from the dojo got into an actual fight. So I had to spend 2 hours de-escalating the situation. And when I finally got back to my coach, he called me a sloth for the rest of the day. And later that evening, we all set up Xbox Live accounts because Gears of War, the game, was released, and I needed a gamer tag. So that's what I used.
That's hilarious.
There you
go. Let's talk a little bit about content creation. Tell us about your journey as a content creator. What made you want to begin to create content in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's probably a similar story for a lot of people. I had passion for the game, and I basically just created a couple of videos to help my clanmates. Put those on YouTube, and I saw other people enjoying them as well. I actually made a couple of videos that I didn't put on YouTube, and I couldn't find them anymore. I remember back in the day, I taught my clanmates how to lure the enemy heroes to the edge of the map and, wipe them out with the CC troops, stuff like that, which was really fun. And I'd always watched YouTube content through my master's degree because I used to play Clash as downtime in the library, and I thought it looked really interesting. When I finished university, I was no longer competing with judo anymore, and I basically needed a new hobby. So I decided to do a trophy push to Titan League, and because that's when Titan League was released, and that's essentially when my channel was created. So yeah,
that's neat.
Pretty cool. Thinking back to it, how about you guys? What made you start the podcast? Actually,
let's see. Well, I used to be involved with another old podcast for Clash of Clans.
Okay.
And then that one stopped. And there was no real Clash of Clans podcasts around for a while. And I just felt there was a gap, a void that needed to be filled. So I talked to the CFF leadership, and we decided to restart the podcasts. And
I think, didn't that gap happen around the time, for instance, I think the best known one was the Bye Forever podcast, right? And then that one just trailed. That created a gap. There was a tremendous void once that one, ended.
Yeah. The CFF had a number of podcasts that were running as well. And Rig had that one, which was really, really big. And ours were just kind of little niche podcasts and had a little following. But yeah, it was just something that interested me and a few other people. And I coerced Fado to become a co-host.
No, I've been in the co-pilot seat for probably about half the run now, or maybe close to it. Mm-hmm. But I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy meeting people, and I'm lucky because Kat still does most of the legwork for this, and I just get to kind of bask in the reflected glory.
Yeah, it is fun to talk about your hobby, which is sort of your passion, and you get to talk to other people who share that interest. So that similar to yourself, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say that both kind of similar origins, if you will, just different type of content. But
yeah,
I love listening to podcasts, and I think you guys do a great job. I know there was a lot of them around the CWL days, wasn't there? There was quite a few podcasts knocking around back then. But then I think you're right. The Bye Forever podcast was kind of where we had a bit of a lull, and then there's certainly another couple of ones knocking around now as well, which is good.
Yeah, it's sort of resurging a little bit, so that's a lot of fun for everybody, and it kind of follows I think maybe the flow of the game as well.
Yeah, I think it's the same on YouTube. We've had ups and downs in creators coming through, and it's always nice to see new creators starting as well. And every once in a while, I think more the Supercell creator program that they've started pushing that a little bit more. That's kind of helped, I think, in the last couple of months to get some fresh content creators starting. But I think it's harder in Clash of Clans for people to stick with it because it's already a developed game. Like you see a lot of creators in Clash Mini that it's not even out yet, but it's such a new game that they stick with it. Whereas I see a lot of people start creating content with Clash of Clans and then just kind of stop. But I don't know whether it's just the maturity of the game, that prevents people from sticking through. But it's always nice to see fresh content creators starting out as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're right. That content creator program is definitely a lot of help to people getting started. So,
for sure.
Kudos to them. So tell us a little bit, what do you enjoy the most about content creation and what do you enjoy the least?
Ooh, I love the process of trying to perfect a video. And I enjoy the content creation, I would argue, more than Clash of Clans. I've just grown a real desire of trying to learn everything I can about making a really interesting video, and then actually going through the process from start to finish of putting that together is such a huge task, but it's so rewarding as well when you finally get to that point of releasing a video that you've worked so hard on, and then people get to enjoy that. I think the process of just trying to craft something I'm truly proud of. I've always been quite a perfectionist, so I think that comes through in the videos, and I just want to try and make the best Clash of Clans content there has ever been and break records in the game despite it being over 10 years old. When it comes to the least enjoyment, it's tricky because, you follow your passion in terms of work and things. So I really do love, all of the aspects of the job, but I think there are, like anything, there's pros and cons, right? And I think the hardest thing is being able to switch off. And, when I used to work at the hospitals, unless I was on call or something, when you finish work, typically you finish work and you go home and that's it. You can just switch off and do what you need to do. You can spend time with your family. You can go out and play sports or whatever it is you do that. But it's very hard to do that when you have your own business and you have your own channel and things. So I think that's definitely the hardest part to deal with. And yeah, I think you just put a lot of stress on yourself, or at least I do. So I would probably say that's the least the least thing that I enjoy.
Well, with over 2.7 million subscribers on YouTube, I mean, you also put out content on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram. Twitter, Facebook, you name it. And you've created over 1,800 YouTube videos. Besides moderation in Twitch or YouTube streams, do you have staff to assist you with that or on your social channels? Or do you do it all yourself?
No, so my wife works for me in terms of she does all of the bookkeeping and, essentially like managing my diary a little bit as well. I have a couple of editors that I work with, and I work very closely with my editors. So I'll be jumping on a call with one of them right after this. And we basically, go through the entire process of the video together. And I think that's important to remain the creative in your work, or at least to me. There's different ways of doing it. There's never a right and wrong when it comes to the content creation. It just depends on what works best for you. And then I have my brother-in-law basically helps as well with a lot of stuff. He's just started actually, so he's essentially helping me with a lot of like personal assistant type roles, just trying to, I never have enough time for anything, there's always more videos I want to make and bigger projects and, just anything he is able to do to help manage my time. That's essentially what he's going to be trying to help me with. Because he is just leaving the military here in the UK, and I basically was able to, provide him with an exit plan because he wanted to leave. And it's very rewarding to be able to do that for your family and stuff as well. So it's kind of a win-win for both of us.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting stuff to be able to branch out and to help with something that's pretty unique. And
yeah, it'll be fun. I'm sure he'll enjoy it. Like I said, he's only just kind of started doing little bits of, essentially organizing my mess of an office, because behind the camera everything looks great, but then everything's just so disorganized everywhere else. Because you've always got stuff to do, but you always have to prioritize what you do, right? And making videos is always higher up the list than, organizing all of that paperwork that's been sat there for 6 months. So
well, nobody sees what's on the floor, right? So
exactly. So yeah, I have plenty, and then obviously I do have, like you said, I've got people that help me with moderation on Discord, and back when I used to live stream, I had people that would help on the streams and stuff as well. So much like other content creators, there's people that obviously help, just volunteer basically to help support the channel, which is always appreciated.
And like most of your videos are Clash of Clans. Do you ever plan on focusing on other games that you would like to do content for?
I mean, at the moment, I just enjoy Clash of Clans. I don't play any other games, and there's, I've tried other games here and there, but nothing's drew me in like Clash of Clans. And I make the best content that I can, and I think in order to do that, you have to be passionate around what you make content on. I've had people ask me, over the years, why don't you cover a more popular game? But the answer is pretty simple, because then I couldn't make the best content that I can. And I will just stick with Clash of Clans. I can't say that I would never move to a different game if something else was more compelling, but like right now, I can't see that being the case, and Clash of Clans is just getting bigger and better. So
yeah, it really is.
I have zero desire to do anything else at the moment. It's just so good, and they've basically doubled the size of their team. And I think I was on Ash's podcast, maybe 4 or 5 months ago now, and criticism I gave back then has basically been completely changed, and they have knocked everything out of the park, because I essentially said that I thought the events that they do in the game, they've done quite poorly, and this was following Clashiversary, which I thought was not really an event at all. And then they released the Halloween event, a month or two later after I said that, which was incredible. Yeah. And as I spoke to Darian, they clearly intend to keep that level of event success going. So that was kind of the main criticism I had at the time. But, obviously there's always bits and bobs. But as a whole, I think they do a tremendous job, and I'm excited for the future with it. I'm sure you are as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so speaking of your collaboration with Supercell, You do have, you obviously you've been to Worlds, you do all sorts of official stuff for them. Do you ever offer them advice on how to support newer creators?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the Supercell creator program that you see right now has been massively, improved based on feedback from, I guess you could say, more of us veteran creators. I don't know what a better word to describe it, but many of us creators that have, worked with Supercell for years, we've provided lots of feedback, which they take on board. And, the creator program that you see right now is a direct result of them innovating. I don't want to feel like us creators have, told them exactly this is what you need to do or anything like that. But even the creator program itself actually came about from feedback of creators, even before my time. So yeah, we give them feedback all of the time. And they always want that as well. We've actually gone out to Supercell to directly give them feedback, and that was kind of the primary focus of going there, was to provide them with feedback for the creator program.
Mm-hmm. Does that feedback expand into like when they're working on Town Hall 16? Obviously, there are NDAs while that's in the works, but now that it's released, how much is the creator involved in, say, new content for a town hall or a game mode, or even balancing changes?
I mean, we just like any person in the community, we can all provide our feedback on anything at any time. You can provide it through Reddit, and for example, they always read on there. Just like we as creators in the creator program arguably have an easier route to provide the feedback because we have, NDA chats and stuff. So we provide feedback and suggestions on what we would like to see all of the time. It's not like a set thing where they open up a meeting and say, okay, now give us the feedback. We will just constantly be giving them that whenever we feel like there's something to say. So in that regard, yep, we provide feedback all of the time. And with regards to updates, I mean, they typically know what they want to do. They have a roadmap for whatever it is that they're going to be bringing. And they do ask us for our feedback from time to time. Typically, that's a lot further on in development, though, in terms of balance changes and stuff like that. But I know they take a lot of things into consideration. It's not just the content creators, it's the community as a whole, the war scene, it's everything. But we do provide specific feedback on the balance, yeah. And I think it's actually a really good gauge for them, because a lot of YouTubers are above average. But I'll use myself as a clear example here. I'm not the best player in the world. I am not that good of a player, to be honest. But I'm probably the type of person that they should be balancing the game around, And I think Town Hall 15 was an example of that. And that's where Darian said that. They balance the game for the slightly above average player, if you will. Mm-hmm. So when the YouTubers do any testing, we aren't pro players for the most part. Sure, there's a couple of, anonymous, outliers, and there's some players that are better than others. But in general, we are above average, but we're not pro players. So I think we provide some really quality feedback.
And then during that build process, and again, I'm just going to use the Town Hall 16 process because it's all fresh in our minds. You have early access through their, I don't know what you would call that, but they have certainly some sort of a test environment. You're probably regularly engaged in that. You're testing it out. You're getting an opportunity to plan your own content for it. But do you get to see them make progress in those like test environments that are, not publicly available?
What do you mean in terms of seeing content develop?
Yeah. So, hey, this is our first shot at this. This is our new Root Rider troop.
No,
right?
Not really. I mean, we don't get involved until the last stage, basically. Supercell have their own team that balance things very effectively, to be honest. 99% of the time when the balance comes to the YouTubers, it's pretty much set. It's already fantastic. It's more just those finer adjustments, and if something is completely out of whack. But we don't get it that early, really. It's typically a week before the update. We'll do a final round of balance changes, because they can tweak the balance at any point, right? It doesn't need to be, something in the code or anything. They can just tweak the numbers. So generally, it's very close to the update when we practice. And then when we're actually allowed to create sneak peeks is even closer to the update. It's not far in advance at all, you know? So...
And then so switching up a little bit, but still talking about your communication with them. So, you know, with the introduction of the ores in Town Hall 16 to, you know, up your equipment for your heroes, it makes it even more critical for you to miss fewer wars. And to miss fewer wars generally means you can't have heroes upgrading. So you're either using books, you're using hammers, you're using gems. Do you ever think they're eventually going to adjust it to make it so that you can use your heroes even while they're upgrading?
I hope so. I mean, I gave that feedback to Darian in the interview that I had with him. It's not fun right now. So I hope they do something about it. And they've certainly had suggestions. You know, they've had suggestions from creators. They've had many suggestions on Reddit. They've seen it, but obviously they know the numbers. They have a business to run as well at the end of the day. I don't think they would be ready to completely say you could just use your heroes because, you know, the Book of Heroes has got to be a good revenue driver for them. And then what happens to all of the people that have Book of Heroes or have used them? And, you know, it's really hard to rip something of that magnitude out of the game, I would assume. So I hope they do something. But I'm really not sure what their solution could be. I think the best one I have heard, and I know this is equally been given to the team, is some sort of potion that you could use, and that would allow you to use your heroes for an hour. I think that's the best suggestion I've heard. Whether they decide to go for something like that, time will tell. They have arguably made it a little bit, you know, like the equipment upgrades instantly, and your hero cost and times aren't as expensive because of that. I think they got reduced quite significantly at different levels, but they're still out for a couple of days. So it still doesn't completely solve the issue. And I do think they need to do something about it. I just don't know if or when, but I'd like to think they address it somehow. I mean, even as a minimum, you know, like friendlies, there's no reason you shouldn't be allowed to use your heroes in friendlies. It's a friendly attack. Is, you know, that should just be a thing.
Yeah, you don't have to train the army, and why not, you know, be able to use your heroes at that point in time? And, you know, speaking of friendlies, during FCCWL, you can do friendly wars. You can even do a farm war in a different clan. Do you think Supercell's ever going to transition that for normal wars, where you can do a normal war in your own clan and maybe hop over to an event clan and do like a friendly or even a league war?
Again, I think that is something that many people would want. Clearly, we would want that. I don't know whether that's something that they are able to do or would do because, again, that's something that has been suggested pretty much since CWL came out and nothing's happened. So I know you can still do regular wars in a different clan, right? So I guess there is some sort of workaround there, but I don't know. I would like to think if they were going to do it, they would have done it by now, or at least they would let us know if the regular, you know, by implementing the ores, like you said, to the regular wars, how that's going to be. I don't know how I think the issue is always the fact that, and this is something that has been responded to, given as a response, at times as well, is the game is like 10-year-old, and the way the game is built is sometimes not able to be adjusted to allow certain features. Or Darian was explaining to me in my interview with him how in the clan capital, they can actually do a lot more things than they can in the home village because all of the tech and, you know, everything behind it is so much newer. So I don't know how things go in that regard, whether that has some sort of limitations for them, because again, it's one of those things that feedback has been provided pretty much since CWL came out. The ores, yes, it makes it more important, but it doesn't change the fact that we've always wanted it. So I'd like to think they would have seen and brought it by now, but maybe, you know, it definitely is more of an issue. So I'm sure there will be even more people commenting about it. So I'd like to think they have, again, some sort of solution.
It'll be interesting to see if they can, because I know they're, like you said, the game is so old. So there's probably portions of it that are built on maybe one server and others are stored on newer servers and there's different codes involved. So it's, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys have seen it as well. Like instantly, everyone's just super active in war, right? Because we want the ores. But then when it comes to Clan War leagues, I mean, we want the CWL medals as well, right? Like now we have to choose. The only thing is just put the ores in Clan War leagues. If it, if they're not going to bring the opportunity to do regular wars, you should be able to obtain the ores through Clan War leagues. And then, balance it out, that it equals roughly the same.
That's interesting, yeah. Speaking of events, you're going to be busy tomorrow participating in the Creators versus Champions event.
Yep.
Looks like a lot of fun. Do you have strategies worked out yet? You got a pretty OP team there.
I guess I would just say wait and see. I mean, it's really hard, right? Because they're the world champions, the Clash champs. They're incredible. Like I said, I'm not. Even against the other creators, I am not that good of a player. But I will just be trying to do my best. I think Town Hall 15 is a lot more fun. But it's always tricky of trying to get that balance because I like to really try and customize a plan to the base. And I think I am quite creative in what I do. But a lot of the time I get too creative that I just mess up, right? So that's definitely something to consider. And with Itsu on my team, normally he's able to just tell me like, I think that's way too risky. You should just do this, and I always trust his judgment because he's been in, the situations of being able to understand bases to a degree that I will never be able to. Being a base builder is something that just blows my mind.
Yeah, and now Kat's got to return a large sum of money to Clash Champs because we weren't able to extract your super secret strategy from you before tomorrow. So have fun with that, Kat.
Sorry about that.
I'm sure Clash Champs will probably be just fine. But yeah, I mean, they were super impressive at the World Championships, weren't they? So
they dominated.
I expect them to continue getting bigger and better because even the last couple of years, they were kind of. Their roster was, I mean, even going back to the INTZ days, right? They were kind of INTZ a little bit and then moved into QSFN and last year Space Station. And the rosters kind of change a little bit, but the core players and where they're from, if you will, have kind of been around for a long time. So it's good to see them finally move up and do very well because they've always been kind of on the cusp of winning, had the potential, but never been able to kind of get to the top.
Oh, certainly. And Kat and I were talking about this right before we started, and that those names are names that have been around from basically the birth of the pro scene. So those are some big time names, and yeah, good on them for getting their due at Worlds.
Yeah, it is fun to watch. We follow the pro scene, the ESL scene as it develops, and you watch people that come up from the community leagues and they develop it and to watch them finally sort of reach the pinnacle of Clash of Clans esports is really fun to do.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you think of how nervous you get for a war attack just sitting in your bedroom, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then they're up on stage, their hands are shaking and they're still managing to do a Skelly Donut attack with ease. Like, how? Yeah, what is happening?
It's so impressive.
It really is. I have a lot of respect for how they're able to compose themselves and the work that they put in. It is just a pleasure to watch.
Definitely. So let's chat a little bit about Town Hall 16. What are your thoughts about Town Hall 16 so far? Do you love it? Do you hate it?
I very much like Town Hall 16. I think Town Hall 15 was just too hard for a lot of people. I think the pro scene will obviously disagree. But I think the truth of the matter is for the majority of people, Town Hall 15 was frustratingly hard. And I think Town Hall 16 is the breath of fresh air that the game needed on bringing things back to being fun. And I was just so happy to see the equipment being all of the way down to Town Hall 8, because that's something I've been saying to the team for quite some time, is the updates are just yes, there's a couple of things for people here and there, but they're really the end players. And it's not that you can't deliver that content. You absolutely have to keep the game moving forward, but you have to try and, revolutionize gameplay for everyone and bring some huge features for more people to be interested in. So I was really happy to see that they introduced the hero equipment for everybody. I know that's not Town Hall 16 specific, but obviously it came with the update. And yeah, I mean, as a whole, I just think it's going to be so much more fun to play than Town Hall 15. It arguably does bring in the factor of the pros, thinking it's too easy. But even that in itself, I think that's an area that Clash need to improve on and develop a different system for the pro scene, because the pros are getting so good at the game that this is what happens. It almost sets them in a different area, so they are not going to like Town Hall 16 as much, I don't feel. But for the general player base, I think people are going to enjoy it way more. I mean, obviously I got to, that little bit early access, like you were saying, in order to create the sneak peeks and things, but how have you both been finding it? It's been, just out of the first week.
For me personally, I am loving it. It's like you said, I am one of those average players, below average players, that, 15 was extremely frustrating for me. 16, it's just a lot of fun. I've seen a lot of creativity in people's attacks, trying different things, trying different equipment on their heroes. It's just, like you said, it's been a breath of fresh air, and it's rejuvenated and reminded me why I love this game.
And we're only doing the things that we've found out, right? Once some of these competitions get rolling again and we watch what the pros are doing, and with the variety of even pets, like now it's, you're thinking, well, is the fox the best thing for your champ, or is it Diggy? Like the variety we're going to see, whether it's among pet selection or equipment selection, is going to open the heck up this game. It is really, really exciting to think where it's going to go.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even from I would say, I know I'm going back into the esports side of things again, but I would say even from a viewing perspective of those tournaments, when you are watching the pro players and then all of a sudden the giant arrow flings across the base and he drops a couple of lightning spells to take out this, it's just so exciting to see what they could do with the equipment as well. And, they've got nothing for the Royal Champion yet. And they've said that they are bringing more equipment for the other heroes as well. So it'll be even more customized. And looking at what they've got so far, it seems like they will continue to just bring a variety of, I like to call them gears rather than equipment. I think it's just a way better name. I think the gears that they have for them at the moment are very useful in terms of being able to choose specific ones for strategies, but they're also really fun as well. There's a lot of just cool things that you can do with them. So I'm sure they'll continue to go down that route as well. So I think from an esports perspective, it'll be really exciting to watch those wars and just how they're able to use the equipment to their advantage. And I do think it will lead to a lot more hero dives and things like that as well, and using the equipment in conjunction with that. So it'll just be cool to see what they come up with, because it always takes a good number of weeks for the meta to establish after updates.
Well, and who doesn't love the vamp stash, right? Whoever thought that name up needs a raise. It's great. So do you have a favorite troop composition and a favorite troop yet at Town Hall 16?
I really like Queen Charge attacks. I always have. I think at Town Hall 15 they were just really difficult to use. So I have started using the Queen Charge again, and I'm having a lot more fun with that. I think in terms of the equipment for the Queen, right now I just stick with her base equipment because it's just better for a Queen Charge. For the King, I do like to use the Vamp Stash. If I'm diving him into a compartment that's dense, I like to use the Earthquake Boots. And then the Warden, I tend to have the same equipment for as well, for the most part. But I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to use with the Queen Charge. I've been having some success with the Dragon Riders because I always used to enjoy those at Town Hall 14. And also the Root Riders. It's just, they're so easy to control because they're so tanky. It's not like Hog Riders where if you just miss that freeze spell, they're dead. You know, with the Root Riders, you get a little bit of time to be able to react as well. So I think they're a lot more user-friendly for someone like me. And that's kind of what I've been using at the moment. But I do like dragon attacks as well. I always used to like the Recall Super Bowler at Town Hall 15. It was kind of the one strategy I had a little bit of success with. So I've been starting to use kind of Recall Electro Dragons or Super Dragons or whatever I feel is better for the base. And that's been kind of working out relatively well as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like those Root Riders were kind of born from the Mountain Golem in the clan capital. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, and yeah, that's just I'm excited to really get to know those Root Riders.
Have you used them much?
I haven't used them much. We have a lot of clanmates using them with I wouldn't say various levels of success because most people are quite successul with them. I have a gut feeling those will be nerfed a little bit relatively shortly.
Yeah. I mean, they are very strong, but hey, the one thing I've always said is you're far better off to release a troop that's strong than release a troop that's weak and then buff it, because first impressions for people are huge, and it can take a long time for people to then start using that troop if they tried it once and it completely failed and they're like, okay, well, this troop is naff, I'm not going to use that anymore. So I think they're always better to release troops slightly stronger if they're not too sure and then dial it back. But yeah, I mean, they are strong, but on the same token, it's always the dilemma of we are essentially attacking like Town Hall 15 bases right now because they haven't had many of the defenses upgraded. And even when they get to maxed at, like this stage, if you will, we haven't had a new level to the Scattershot, to the Eagle, to the Infernos, and you think they're not going to add a new level to the Root Riders per se, so that's kind of as strong as the Root Riders are getting, I would imagine, for the rest of Town Hall 16. So if they nerf them now and then they add the other defense levels, do they then have to buff them again? Or I think that's a tricky thing for them to get right as well. And I would imagine that's why the team wanted to go down the route of releasing a Town Hall with half of the update and then do the other half, because it's just easier to balance. But as, again, I keep referencing my interview with Darian, but I obviously shared with him a lot of things that I believe. I don't think that was the best route for the game, because 9 months waiting for home village content is not good enough for people. So I'm glad that they're going down this route a little bit more, even if it is trickier for them to balance, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is very welcomed and excellent timing for them to release this. So speaking of updates, do you have a particularly favorite update in Clash of Clans? Everybody seems to have their favorite Town Hall update, or when something specific was introduced to the game. What stands out in your mind?
I mean, this is going to be a really boring answer because I feel like everyone's going to say it, but I really think probably the Clan Wars is the one that sticks out in my mind the most, because I mean, me and all of my friends at the time, I still remember we were always saying, why can't we war together? Why can't we war together? And I think it was the January update, they brought out the hero abilities, which is, there you go, nostalgia. They didn't even have hero abilities back then. And then they brought them out and we were like, what is this? Hero abilities? Who wants that? We want to war against each other. And it was the next update as well in the March, I think it was, when the wars came out. So it was just a really fun time because me and all of my friends were wanting to be able to do that, and then they finally released it. It was really epic. So I think that's the one that stands out in my mind the most. And yeah, other than that, I think just new Town Hall levels are the most exciting in general, because typically they do a good job of revolutionizing the gameplay at each level. I think this is something that Clash of Clans has in their favor a lot. Like when you compare it to Royale, for example, I know they struggle more so with how do they make each level different, whereas Clash of Clans, we don't really have that issue. So the new town halls are always exciting. But how about both of you? I'm guessing that Clan Wars and Town Halls might also be up there.
Yeah, if you take out the Clan Wars, then the Builder Hall 10 was not very exciting. So, all kidding aside, it's always the one that's fresh in your mind. They made a big deal about the the boat when the builder base was launched. What the heck is a boat? And so, that was a really anticipated one. I think for me, and I'm going back a ways, but the update they did around the time of Town Hall 10, when they made Town Hall 10 feel a lot more open to heck. I mean, there weren't pros back then, but when you could start healing through infernos, that re-energized my love for the game, right? Because it used to be, well, I'm just hoping to get the best high percent 2-star at this point. But then all of a sudden, a lot more, no one used hogs at Town Hall 10 before you couldn't heal, when you couldn't heal through an inferno. And so that really re-energized me with the game. So outside of, wars and outside of town halls, I think that one particular update really did it for me.
That's so funny, because I remember back then I was really deep into the strategy, and I remember interviewing Darian, amazingly. I think he must have just joined the team around that time, and I interviewed him about a week or so after it, maybe 2 weeks, and I remember saying if this change isn't received well, you'll revert it back, right? Because I was very much in the camp that I didn't want that. But it's so funny how times change, because it's so much better for the game, and it's kind of how the pros are a little bit now, wanting the game to be even harder and harder. That's almost like what I was like back then. So it's funny that you mentioned that one. How about yourself, Kat?
For me, it stands out when they introduced spells like Poison Spell. That one, the Poison Spell particularly, just blew my mind.
Yeah, all the dark spells.
Yeah. Because, you would drop a troop in the corner and the CC would come out and they wouldn't move out of the poison.
Yeah, they'd just stay in there, right? You could use an archer to pull them to the side and just bloop, there you're good.
Yeah, exactly. Let them die. And then they realized, this wasn't such a great idea. And so then they fixed it that they would move out of the spell.
Oh, yeah,
so I was kind of disappointed.
And they made the damage build instead of it being a constant.
Yeah,
and they nerfed it on heroes pretty quickly too. So but yeah, that was game changing also.
Yeah, it's fun to look back on the updates.
Yeah, I mean, we had someone drop into one of our clans about a month or two ago and said, and he's been gone for 2.5 years or so, and he just said, I don't even know what's going on. and we, as people who are regular consumers of that game, when you take it all in total, holy mackerel, just in 2 years, how much has changed.
Yeah, I think that is kind of one of the dilemmas for Clash. It is a very complicated game, really. And just watching it, if you will, just watching somebody play it, it's not like you can have someone watch their friend and be like, oh, I know what I need to do there, and just jump on and play as well. It looks really complicated. Obviously, as you play, you get to learn things, but I also think that's a little bit of an issue that they need to seriously consider, as well as they bring more town hall levels, they speed up the game, right? Which is good, because you always want people to be able to get to that end point. But what it does mean is you just speed through the levels, and before you know it, you have so many troops and spells and defense, and you haven't had that same learning process that we've had as longer term players. So I think that's something that they definitely need to keep in mind as they are speeding up the game.
Yeah, and then you mentioned that you're coming up on your own personal 10-year anniversary with the game. Did you expect yourself to get where you're going, and for Clash, even the game, to be around this long, or you be making content this long?
I would say it probably depends on when you ask me that question, because, as time goes on, things change, right? So, I mean, when I first started making content, I was fortunate with regards to I purely just did it for fun. I didn't even know you could make any money doing content creation, let alone be able to do it as a job. And then even when I started, making a little bit of money, I remember at work, I would take time off to go to events and stuff like that. And people would ask me, do you think you'll ever do that for your job? And I was like, no, that'll never get to that big sort of thing. But then as time goes on, you then realize like, oh yeah, like maybe I could. And I think it just depends on, things change. And once I decided I was going to go full time with content and truly like put my mind to it and do, everything I could on it, then I knew I could, certainly the limits that I had, I felt were then removed because I had a lot of just time issues basically on making my content better. So I think as time went on, I realized I could make content for the long run. But I mean, even then, that was probably only now arguably just before I ended up going full time, which was just over 3.5 years ago. So, or not even 3.5 years ago now, less than that. So, yeah, I would say just within the last 4 years, I've realized I could do this long term. Before then, it was always like, yeah, I'll just keep enjoying it sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But Clash of Clans is a huge game, I mean, for the Clash of Clans itself part of the question, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that's always been the case. It might go down in popularity, but it has such a hardcore fan base that people will just continue to play the game. I don't think I don't think it ever crossed my mind that Clash wouldn't be there. At least not in the, in the near future. I mean, you're talking like 20 years time or something. I don't know, maybe, but certainly not in, years to come.
Definitely. And just recently, we talked a little bit about the Worlds earlier. I wanted to touch briefly on the in-person experiences you had as a host for Worlds. It really appeared to go off very smoothly, and a lot of people in the audience. Everybody seemed really hyped up for it. Do you have a favorite memory of the event?
Of Clash Worlds that's just happened?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I wish I had more time to actually spend with people because I was just non-stop at the event. And I think as casters, we always are. For me, I think just being back involved with the casting again because I wasn't involved the year before. And, it's such a privilege to be able to be out on the stage and represent the game in that way. So for me, I would say, it was obviously great to see everyone again, but just being back involved with the casting was really special. And I did make a video when I was out there as well, which hasn't been released yet, but that'll be fun when it finally gets released. It's good fun.
How has the scene changed, like from your perspective for the esports, the whole pro scene? Do you see it evolving for Clash of Clans, like just getting bigger and bigger?
I think they need to continue looking to evolve it, which I know they do. I think my main concern on it really is that it's hard for sponsors to get as involved in its current form because if someone qualifies in the first month, they don't get any screen time up until World Finals. So it's really hard for sponsors to take that leap into Clash esports. And I know we do have some, but it would be great to be able to attract even more. But that requires a lot of things in terms of having enough players to be able to fill, that amount of wars, and whether that's even something that the players want, to then, being able to attract those sponsors, but then kind of changing the tournament in a way as well. So I think it's got better over the years in terms of, we used to have the voting system and things like that. Like the last chance or I guess like the main qualifier it now is with the community stuff is just way better because it's competitive for all of the tickets. But I think in order to like take it to the next level, they would have to introduce some sort of league. But it's really whether the resources would be put in place to do that, and whether, when the right time is, if the right time even comes about to make that jump. Because, I mean, as far as it goes in terms of optimization, I'm not sure what else they can do to the format it is right now to make it any better. So how do they kind of evolve it other than, really take it to another level of introducing some sort of league? And then you always have those top teams playing, and it's meaningful matches that the viewers will want to watch. There's a reason that people on Twitch cover particular teams over others, so it's people want to see those top teams. So
for sure,
I think it's a tricky one right now. I think they've optimized things incredibly well to this stage, and like I said, I'm not sure what else they can do to make it any better other than, really take that next leap. But I don't know when or if that is something that would ever happen.
Yeah, totally. I can see that they would, need to address that in the future for sure.
I think the only other option they have is to, make it different. Bring different types of events as well. We just have the 5 versus 5 wars, but bring stuff, where there's a challenge level and the players get to see that right there, and then they have to all attack it, and whoever beats the challenge first wins that round and moves on to the next stage, or, something like that, where it's not always just the 5 versus 5. I know it doesn't feel as esporty, but it's maybe something that attracts a different viewer base. And the more you can make it fun for people to watch as well, because whilst it has to be competitive for the pros, it needs to be fun for people to watch. So there's always that angle of, different types of tournaments to bring into the esports scene as well that could work.
Yeah, that's definitely something to think about, because if you don't have the audience watching it, you're not going to attract the sponsors, which, it's a vicious circle, right? So
yeah.
We're at the part of the show where we do shout outs now. Do you have any person or anything that you want to shout out, Judo?
Not really, I guess. Just, to everyone that watches my channel and supports me in what I do. And, I know we talked a little bit about team members and stuff earlier on. So everyone that obviously helps me with that. I've got a lot of people around me that support me. So, yeah, just everyone that helps with my journey, all of my clanmates and all of my subscribers, I guess. Just a lot of people. Too many to name.
Fado, how about you?
Yeah, I want to shout out to JUDO and all the creators who continue to help drive interest in the game. Because I can tell you that every time I tune in and watch a match, and it's a big match, and there's a JUDO or another nearly as big content creator doing it, not only do you learn a lot watching them play, but you guys really drive the broadcast. You're really making people feel involved. You're engaging with the audience in chat. You're answering chat questions. And you're doing a really good job of bringing energy to an event that otherwise you're just watching replay silently by yourself. So huge shout out to you, JUDO, and the rest of the cast team.
Oh, thank you.
And my shout out is also, obviously, thank you, JUDO, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And a big shout out to all the developers and people at Supercell for actually listening to the community and implementing some changes that we've been asking for a long time. I think, refreshed the game and brought a level of excitement to it that we really haven't seen for quite a while. So that's my shout out.
For sure.
And thank you everybody for listening. The CFF is a family of clans who love to play various games such as Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, among others. You can send questions or comments to us on Twitter at RedThornCOC. To get more information on our clans, events, and podcasts, join the CFF Discord at discord.gg/clashfiles.